Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming tonight to the Q&A with Moseley Director of Rugby, Adam Boulding. We might as well get the show straight on the road. Has anybody got the first question?
Good evening, Adam. Good evening.
Evening, you okay?
You know, with the Worcester situation, is there any chance of getting any of their lads down there?
Of course there is. I think it's a very sensitive situation, isn't it? I mean, you know, what's happened to Worcester is horrific. Your hearts go out to all the staff, players, everybody associated with the club. So I think for now, you know, the players and staff are trying to sort themselves out first and foremost. I've opened up a dialogue with a couple of members of staff around offering an opportunity here if certain players fall into that criteria that we're looking for. And ultimately, I think everybody just wants to provide an opportunity for all their players, because it's not their fault. You know, they just want to carry on playing, like their staff want to continue working. And if we can offer an opportunity here for a couple of players, if they fall into our, what we're looking for, then fantastic. But personally, I just wish Worcester well, and hopefully, it all gets resolved quickly, and the players and staff and everybody else associated with the club, move on to greater things, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Another question,
What I was going to ask was, obviously they've got an academy at Worcester. We was discussing it last week, and we just wondered, is there any chance of sort of us getting hold of that, really?
In terms of the academies, I believe they're funded through the RFU, so the RFU are heavily involved. So I'd imagine the answer would be no. I don't think we're in a position to take on such a large moving vehicle, which is what an academy really is. And again, your heart goes out to all those young lads coming through who, this is their platform, this is their pathway in terms of how they then break into full-time professional rugby. And hopefully the RFU will step in and other governing bodies to resurrect or continue that academy structure, because ultimately it's the players that will suffer, and we just you just hope that those young players have have welfare measures around them to continue that development.
Anybody else got one? I've got one from the emails. You going to go first, Chris?
If I can do this one. Yeah. I'm a bit of a nerd.
Okay.
And I did a bit of number crunching this afternoon.
Okay.
And I was looking at when we score tries during a game and when our opponents score tries.
I've done a very similar study, but yep.
I'm sure you have.
Yep.
In which case, you'll have noticed that in the first half of the game, we're about even with our opponents. And the problem seems to come in the last 10 minutes
15
of the game. We have a difference of -5 tries as against our opponents in the last... Sorry, Owen, but you need it closer. Yeah, we've scored, over this season we've scored 19, we've conceded 24, and in the last 10 minutes we've scored 2 and conceded 7 over all the 5 matches. Do we have a running out of steam problem?
In short, the answer would be yes, wouldn't it? I think concentration is the big thing. We've just come from a meeting upstairs with the lads, and the boys have just we've gone through all the stats in terms of the last 5 games, and we're conceding too many points. We're shipping 4 tries a game at the moment, which is, we need to get that down to 2 to 3 or below 3 if we can. We're averaging 30 points a game in terms of what we're scoring, so we're certainly scoring points. But reality is, you're absolutely right. We're conceding too many, and the lads are fully aware of it. It's been a very challenging first block for us because of the lack of rugby during pre-season. The 3 games that we had, so Cinderford away, which we should have got points from, Chinner away, which we should have got points from, and you'd probably argue in both of those games, lapses in concentration, which led to extremely easy scores for the opposition, subsequently denied us then of valuable points. We should have collected 2 points from both games, and we'd be sat now on 14 as opposed to 10. And if you look at the stats from last year, I think we'd we'd won like 2 or 3 more games than teams above us, but reality is they'd collected bonus points in every game they'd played, which then equates to additional, wins effectively. So, look, we're fully aware of it. The lads understand what we're trying to achieve. They're a great group. They work hard. We have to make sure we lay that defensive stall out down at Bishop Stortford and hit some of the targets and KPIs that we set within the group. Does that help? Yeah? Cheers, Chris.
Shall I do one from the emails? Okay, given what seems to be an endless debate on the message board about the shortcomings of our lineouts, are things in place to try and make us more competitive in this area? And that's from Andy Jameson.
Andy, that's a valid question, Andy. I think the issue that we've had is inconsistency with the actual drill itself. So there's many moving parts to a line-out. So obviously you got the throw, you got the call, you got the jump, you got the movement across the floor, you got the lift, and long and short of it, the actual mechanics around the lift and the execution of the actual movement have actually let the line-out down. The actual call and the throw has actually been spot on, because if you look at where the lift actually ends up, we're reducing our height by probably 2 to 3 foot. And if we execute 2 to 3 foot in training, you have to execute 2 to 3 foot in the game, because the hooker is used to pitching at a certain height. The first 5 lineouts down at Chinner, 3 were poor lifts. 1 was a missed call, which resulted in a missed lift, and the 5th one was a knock straight. But ultimately, when you start to derail in a certain area of the game, those key decision makers that either execute or do the calling will start to then doubt themselves. So the hookers start to doubt their throwing, the callers start to doubt their knowledge and where they're actually calling the lineouts to. And ultimately it's actually not their fault. It's a collective issue that as a pack of forwards we have to address, and the standards around lifting haven't been good enough, and it's something that we're rectifying.
Okay, do we have any? Harley?
Yeah, Harley Williams, first team manager. In light of recent events concerning some elements of the club, what do we consider to be acceptable and unacceptable behaviour right across the club? Obviously we have our outlines in the first team, but from minis and juniors upwards, what is good, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable? And moving on, when something is unacceptable, what can the club do about it?
It's quite an open question. Firstly, I'll look at go to the first team. So as a collective working group, we've got 3 core values that we try and adhere to. So hard work, honesty, and being humble. And I think if you maintain those 3 core values within whatever environment you're trying to create, you get a very grounded approach. Nobody gets above the station. And I think we have to always remember we are guests of Birmingham Moseley. This isn't our club. We're guests here. If we've been here for 20 years, then yes, you can call it your club. But reality is we are here as long as our performance allows us to be here, or our behaviour allows us to be here. And I think it's really important to understand that, as soon as one of those things become out of kilter, then what happens is it brings into question your integrity as a person, but also your core values as an individual. And I firmly believe that this club is steeped in history. Many famous players gone before us in terms of pulling on that Moseley shirt. And as I said, we're guests here, and we should treat this club accordingly. It's a privilege to be here. It's a wonderful facility. It's a great fan base. It's got everything going for it, and I think whoever has the opportunity to pull that Moseley shirt on has a responsibility back to the club in terms of how they present themselves, both on and off the field. And we always have to remember, we've got a large volunteer base, we've got wonderful paid members of staff. We have to treat them continually with respect as well. They've had long days. We have to take into account that our short time at the club does not even scratch the surface with some of the hours that some of our staff have to put in. So I just think it's individual checkpoints, and I think if something does go off piste a little bit, then I think it's important that section of the club pulls it back in-house, and if they can't pull that back in-house, then we've got our disciplinary officer, John Beale, former player. He's very good and passionate about making sure that the discipline within the club is maintained, and John is certainly very active, and I think we all get behind him and support his decisions, but ultimately it sits with the individual and it sits with the section. As I said, it's a privilege to be here, and we have to be grateful that we're part of an amazing club.
Answer your question, Hans? Anybody else on the floor? Glenn?
Yeah, we started off the season when we announced player announcements with a few young players coming into the squad again as development opportunities, and I think we've seen them playing out for Oak and that and doing really well. How do you monitor that as an approach to how they're developing? So, the pathway to the first 15 for them.
So, constant dialogue with Moseley Oak. So we work very closely with the coaching staff. So, Dan Lav, Ollie Thomas, Titch, CJ, all of the coaching staff that are aligned with Moseley Oak, we work very closely with, constant conversations and dialogues. We invite those younger players to train with the first team. So, for example, Jack English has been training with us now for the last 2 weeks because he's very close to actually breaking in, and that's fair reflection on the performances that he's put in with Moseley Oak. So we're always monitoring all the players, and it's not just the senior academy players; it's the Moseley Oak players as well. They've got some really good lads that they brought in off their own back, and ultimately you can sometimes unearth a gem. So that is why it's really important to monitor everything that's going on. But we make sure that we have checkpoints with the lads. They come in and train with the first team, ultimately bring that energy and enthusiasm that you're looking for. And as I said, it's a great example of how they then kick on. So Harry Barnes, Jack English is now kind of on the pathway of what Harry Barnes was 2 years ago. He's training more with the first team. He was travelling with TR against Hull at home. He may feature against Bishop Stortford, we don't know. So, he's working really hard, and, he deserves the opportunity to be with the first team without a doubt.
Okay, any questions, guys? No. I'll do this question. It's not one I really wanted to do, but but if I didn't do it, somebody would say, "Why didn't you do it?" Okay. This is a question from Daniel Finnegan. Having gone from top four to promotion and now looking at barely hanging on in this league, is it not time that the club came out and stopped giving the fans false hope? And where do we go from here? Is it just a case of beating the newly promoted and then live on the scraps for the rest of the season and pray that we don't end up in the bottom of the three? Sorry, mate.
Well, no, you'd have to apologise. Like, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Reality is, it's a valid. He's made some valid points there, but the season's judged over 26 games, not 5. And as I've said, we've won 2 at home. We should have got something out of 2 away games that we didn't. So we would be sat on 14. We certainly don't need to panic because this is a good group. We see how hard they work. I'm very comfortable in terms of the ability that we got within the group. We've got some key players returning from injury. There's some other lads that potentially will be coming in to bolster the ranks. I'm fairly comfortable and confident that we as a group will not turn the results around, collect more points as we go. As I said, the season's judged over 26 games, not 5. And if you've played sports at any level, you understand it's about continuity and consistency. And it's easy when the times are good. Real teams stand up when they get tested through turbulent times. And like I said, we're certainly not panicking by any stretch. We're confident in what we're doing, and we know exactly what we've got to do in these next 5 games. They're going to come thick and fast. We're playing 3 of the top 6 in the last 3 games of this next block. We're playing 7th and 8th away from home and at home respectively. Great opportunity to collect as many points as we can. So, bring on the fixtures and let's see where we're at by end of November.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for answering that. Glenn, I think you've got a couple more, have you?
I'll go with one myself. I think at the last, or maybe the time before, we were talking about Ashley having left us.
Yep.
And I think you said at the time, no rush to replace the forwards coach. So you've got plans in place, see how it goes. Is that panned out now? Are we good on the forward side?
Yeah, Rob Fuller's done a superb job. I mean, I don't think anybody could probably anticipate him growing into the role as he's done so quickly. You have to remember that Rob does it on a daily basis for Hartbury. He's constantly coaching. It was a great opportunity for him. It wasn't really panned out that way, but things change and he's adapted to it really well. And his attention to detail is superb. The lads have bought into what he's asking. Obviously, you could say about the line-out, but that's ultimately not the reflection of the coach. That's player execution. So, Rob's done a great job stepping in, and we're very enthused to have him with us. Very lucky to have him with us, and looking forward to his next block of games to see him grow as a coach further, but also to see us grow as a forward pack.
We got one emailed in, if I may, from David Kerrigan. Having just read the last match programme, can Adam clarify if and when injury victims will be available this season, particularly Morgan, Kalis, and now Dan Lewis?
Sorry, say that again, Glenn.
So, can Adam clarify if and when the injury victims will be available this season? I'm thinking of Morgan Dawes, Kalis Hutchinson, and now Dan Lewis.
Yeah, so Dan Lewis is making a speedy recovery. We're probably looking end of November. Will Safe is almost ready to take the field, which is fantastic news for us. Kalis is going to be a long-term project. I mean, the injury that he sustained was horrific. So I don't think there's an actual return to play date on Kalis. We just got to make sure that he gets all the support he needs to get him into that position. And Morgan Dawes, we'll reassess him around about Christmas time, but we're probably looking, New Year. So we'll go from there. But like I said, we've got lads coming back from injury. Akil Smith's now back fit, which is fantastic. Will Safe's coming back in. Ryan Roach is coming back in, which is great to see. Obviously Max Eiling, unfortunately, has had surgery on his hand, so he's damaged his hand. Pat Zindi's got a concussion, but he'll be back next week. So, all in all, we've got lads coming back in, and as I said, we've got more players to come in as well. Whether it's dual reg players or a couple of additional extra lads coming in just to bolster support and competition for places. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question, Glenn.
Thanks, Adam. Anybody else from the floor? Chris?
Yeah, we operate as the coaching structure is that we have a forwards coach and we have a backs coach, isn't it? Principally, is there a case for having a coach who concentrates on defence, both forwards and backs?
Yep. So Peter Glackin's the head coach.
Yep.
So what Pete does, he oversees the whole coaching program. So content, delivery, everything that goes with it. Rob Fuller is delivering the forward play and breakdown, both sides of the ball. So that means what we do in terms of clear out, but also what we do in terms of being a nuisance legally at the breakdown defensively. And then Rob's working with the forwards in terms of that 8-man chain around the breakdown itself. And Glax is looking at the wider defence in terms of plugging the edges, but also that connection between forwards and backs. So if you look at our actual defensive stats against Hull, for example, we had 41% positive tackles, 59% negative. That's a really good statistic. That's really high. 96% tackle completion. So then when you look at how we then conceded the 4 tries, a couple of them were off really poor giveaways in terms of field position through either a penalty or a missed bit of accuracy which conceded easy position, or it's just a mental switch off and a drop off in mentality defensively. We're trying to pride ourselves on our defence. There was a massive step forward from Chin the week before. We need to see that again now against better opposition going into Bishop Stortford away. So to answer your question, Glax oversees the whole coaching programme, and he will give responsibility to those coaches that he sees fit to deliver what needs to be delivered. Cheers, Chris.
I think that's it, Adam. The other 2 questions I've got on here you've basically covered. It was about Worcester and whether anybody was going to come here and stuff, and the other one was about the bonus points situation and what you're doing about game management.
Yeah. So I mean, I was just going to finally say, and I think this is it's for everybody really. Like, it's very easy to get caught in the emotion, especially when you lose, and it's easy to look from a negative perspective at the current situation. Previous experiences will come back in terms of where you may have been before as a fan or whatever that looks like. But ultimately, we have to keep looking at the bigger picture. And as I said, it's 26 games. All the players that were kept on from last year, they've been rewarded to stay at the club. They've wanted to stay at the club. They've showed loyalty, which is great. But ultimately, as I go back to my original point I made earlier, we're all but guests here at the club, all of us, me included, and it's performance related. So we understand the importance of making sure that we perform out on the pitch. And I don't feel the first 5 games is a true reflection of the quality that we've got within the group. We understand the areas that we've stuttered in. As I've said, we have got players coming back. We've still got players to come in. What this squad will look like post-Christmas will be probably different to what it looks like at the moment, because there will be players coming back from injury and new faces appearing. But reality is, we have to keep pushing those standards as a group, both on and off the field. And all we'd ask from anybody connected with the club is please feel free to ask any questions you'd like, whether it's on social media, whether it's face-to-face, but just have in the back of your mind the best interests of the club. And nobody here ever would go out to underperform deliberately. Reality is we're on a journey. We are making small steps in the right direction. And this next block, we will need to see a big shift in terms of where we're currently at. I expect it. The club needs to expect it. The players need to expect it. And fans and everybody else should demand it. If we can get that, then we'll see where we're at in 5 games.
Can I ask another one, Lee?
You may certainly.
You alluded earlier when Chris asked about sort of the stats on the tries that you were just going through with the squad about, that understanding. The game is obviously played on the pitch, but how much time do you put to sort of the thinking side of the game, the strategy, the practice, rather than just on field, going through the various moves, etc.?
Gosh, an awful lot, Glyn, to be honest with you. So we operate on a theory of 11 hours of remote activity for the players. So that could be anything from S&C to rehab, prehab, analysis, whatever that looks like. And we have very active WhatsApp groups. We've got Huddle as our analytical platform. A lot of detail goes in, and there's a fine balance, especially in a semi-professional environment, which is part-time. Too much detail can push the players one way, and you forget about all the good that you can do as a group. Not enough detail can then leave you underprepared for maybe one or two themes that the opposition may throw at you on a Saturday afternoon. So I think we've got the balance right. What we just need to now do is raise certain aspects of rugby. And one of the comments back to the players, and one of the things that the players have, to be fair to them, they've kind of embraced, is that we have to fall in love with all aspects of rugby, both sides of the football. So you can't just be enthused about attacking. You have to be enthused about defence. You have to be enthused about set piece, kicking, kick chase, all the unglamorous parts of rugby, which are equally as important. And I just feel that maybe that our barometer has been slightly too far one way, which is what the lads have recognised. We as a management group have recognised that as well, which is why a lot more work's going into defence, because that's where we need to really bolster the ranks. And for me, defence sets the tone of a game. It says a lot about you as an individual, but also you as us as a collective. And defence gives you that platform to go and impose yourself on the opposition. And as I said, I thought Hull was a big step forward, but we need to make sure we go again when we get down to Bishop Stortford this weekend.
I'll follow up with another question. It just sort of prompted on that.
Keep going, mate. You're on a roll. Keep going.
Yeah, somebody's got to keep the time going. I think we've seen, I feel anyway, with somebody like Ollie Steadman coming into the team, his leadership really is there. You can see it and appreciate it. Is that something you look to develop in players, so we have more than one person that's taking leadership roles within the squad when we're out on the field?
You do, but I mean, look, Ollie's unique. He's played at a very high level He's a really good talker. He's a good, he walks the walk as well. So he doesn't just talk about it; he actually leads through doing. And it has to be a fine balance between talking and getting on with it. We've done a lot of talking. We've now got to get on with it. And what we need to see is lads inspiring each other, leading through actions, as opposed to talking. We've all been in situations where you can talk yourself into a situation. You can talk yourself into playing a game. The reality is you've got to get out and do it. And that's what we need to see. The decision makers that are out there, I think, do a good job. You've got Will Safe coming back in, who's a really good leader. We've certainly missed Will. But other lads are starting to find their voice. I do believe that winning breeds a more, how can I put it, rounded approach to leadership, because it's easy. When you're winning, it's a great environment. The sky is blue, the birds are singing, everything's rosy. When your performances are up and down or spiky, that's when it becomes challenging. And that's where we are at the moment. We understand the position that we're in. I don't feel that we've got out of first gear. Doesn't mean that we're going to go to Bishop Stortford and win, by the way. But we need to go and get a performance that we can be proud of and build on. And if we can do that, we'll win a lot more games than we'll lose. And like I said, players coming back into the group are now starting to really relish that. Akil Smith, another good leader, talks really well. So like I said, the boys returning from injury are going to be invaluable in terms of that on-field and off-field leadership.
The players themselves, the squad and everything, I think are really good guys. They come in after the game, they mix and have and even when we go on the away trips, the people like Roachy came and all the rest of it, which was great. And it was, I think that did such a lot of good for the travelling supporters. And the second point just is, look where we are, guys. We've got a lovely ground, we've got great facilities. We're not Worcester, we're not struggling, albeit I'm really sorry for them and all the rest of it. And come on, let's give it plenty and get behind Adam.
Yeah, cheers, Lee, and thanks for everybody's time this evening. As I said, the lads understand performance, and ultimately we always want to try and give a performance we can be proud of. Reality is you're playing against 15, 20 other guys who've got a different plan, and that's the trickery with sport, I guess. But as I said, we've got a great group. They are a great group. They're a pleasure to work with. But ultimately, we get judged on performance, and that's what we now have to add resolve to, starting from me, working all the way down to the players. And we're firmly on it. We've got a plan, and we'll stick to it. And hopefully, everybody will stay behind us. And as I said, if people have got comments or questions, I'm always available. Tuesday, Thursday, come down. I'll happily talk to anybody. All I'd say is just be. It's not about being positive, but be pragmatic with your comments. Think about the bigger picture. Think about the fact that it's 26 games, not 5. So, but thank you for your time.
Last one, anybody? Okay, let's have a round of applause for Adam then. Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks for putting yourself out, mate. Top man, mate. Top man. Thank you, guys, for coming as well. Brilliant. See you all at Bishop Stortford. Thank you. Good night.